Hello art journalists, this is Natalie from NK Design. Welcome back to another tutorial. Today is all about watercolor and my colored pencils. I prepped the page with masking tape and then started sketching. I dry brushed a little bit of gesso here and there to make the masking tape disappear. With a kneadable eraser, I remove a little bit of the grey lead pencil and then use my watercolor pencils to trace the lines. I'm using colors that are similar to the colors that I will be using in the watercolors. That way the colors blend in really well. Don't be ashamed to use grey lead pencil to sketch. That way you can erase and go over as many times as you need. Once I'm finished, I use a normal eraser to remove most of the graphite lines. The colored pencils still are visible, just get a little bit softer. Alright, it's time to get my watercolors out. And now look at these gems. Aren't these colors absolutely mind-blowing and beautiful? These are full pans, both with Schmincke and Daniel Smith watercolors. For the skin tone, I'm using Naples Yellow Reddish by Schmincke. I don't have to mix a color, I think it is pretty perfect for the skin. And oops, I made a mistake, but since it's still wet, I can just wipe it off and start over again. The lips I start off with Quinacridone Rose by Daniel Smith. And then I move on to the hair. And for the hair I'm using Manganese Blue and Phthalo Blue. And here comes a fun part. I'm letting the color drip. I simply love how the hair turns out. And moving on to the eyes, as you can see, I'm not very precise and I do make some mistakes. So I try to lift the color up again and I can fix it later with a white Posca marker. For the black color, I'm actually not using black, but Moon Glow by Daniel Smith. Black is just way too harsh. And I continue using that color for the background with a mix of Soda Light Genuine. By the way, my daughter and I went to see Swan Lake, which inspired me to create this art journal entry. And now it's time for my favorite medium of all times, my colored pencils, and I'm using Polychromos by Faber-Castell. These are my absolute favorite colored pencils. You might not see it at the beginning, but I'm slowly layering. I start with light colors and then move on to darker colors to add more shadows. It is easier to add dark colors, but it's almost impossible to lighten things up again. The eyelashes I create with a flick of my hand, and I vary the length of the lashes so that it looks more natural. With grey, I add a shadow underneath the lashes. That creates depth. The eyebrows are done with little strokes. And I make sure that my colored pencils are sharpened at all times. I don't do much for the hair, just a few blue strokes, and I use also the white Chinese marker. With the blue, similar in color to the watercolor, I'm fixing up the lines at the edge of the face. For the nostril, I'm using Van Dyke Brown and Sepia. Never black, it's too harsh. For the lips, I'm using a variation of reds to create depth. The bottom lip is lighter because that's where the light falls. You often see me going backwards and forwards with colors. It's to create depth and I rather go slow. While the swan is white, I want to give it a more three-dimensional look, so I'm adding some shadow. I'm using a variation of greys, and again I'm going over it again and again with lighter and darker colors until I'm satisfied. I'm even using a light turquoise in the wing. With my white Posca marker I'm adding that twinkle to her eyes, and I fix up the roundness of the eyes as well. I'm also using it to add some highlights. For the letters I'm using the white Uniball signal. Adding my date stamp, and I call this one done. I really love how this one turned out, and I love how you see the differences where I put gesso and where I didn't. If you have enjoyed watching this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so. I see you next time. Until then, happy arting!